But let's get to our word of the day. The word of the day is only a 3-letter word today. How? How? How did the Eagles get to where they are? How? And when I think about all the beat writers we've spoken to this year, I think about everything we've observed. How did they turn that Tampa loss last season, which was terrible, into a Super Bowl massacre? And there's a lot of levels to it, but it starts. And I hate to be so simple because it's something that we can probably all learn from in our lives. It started simply from work. First thing, we're talking about how they were able to do it. Vic Fangio comes in with much better players, by the way, than the guys had before. And the first thing he talked about was how they didn't work hard enough. That was the first thing from that minute. And the coaches, and we've talked about that a lot because Vic Fangio did a great job. Kellen Moore did a great job. And Nick Sirianni did a great job. It started with work. They got asked to do things they didn't normally do, even though those Georgia guys had won a lot. And rather than fight and push back, they embraced the work. And I think a lot of credit has to start there when we're talking about how. And there's going to be a lot of different branches to this, how they did it. Think about how hard it is in life to get 1, 2, 3, 4 people to buy into something, let alone 53 people to buy into something that they're uncomfortable doing. And also you got to talk about Jalen Hurts right at the start. Jalen Hurts being okay with Saquon Barkley taking center stage was unbelievable. There are many quarterbacks in this league who would not be willing to sacrifice like him, willing to sacrifice and do something that's uncomfortable and buy it, and he didn't complain. It would have been very easy for him, very easy for Jalen Hurts to complain about how much Saquon was getting the ball. And then if he starts to complain and moan and walk around with a bad attitude, well, then it spreads. And now A.J. Brown, who's a wide receiver by nature, they're all crazy. Now he doesn't buy in. Then Devontae doesn't buy in. And the whole thing blows up. But it started with just simple things. Buy-in from the leader and work. And now you have that. In addition to Howie Roseman doing a tremendous job with this roster. Think about where they were last season this time where we didn't even know about whether or not the head coach was going to be back. Maybe Bill Belichick was going to be the coach. It started with work, and it goes to buy-in, and now we're Super Bowl champions. And if you talk about people that want to look ahead and they want to talk about next year, and I'm not doing that yet. We're talking about what happened this year. If it doesn't start with these basic things, then they're not going to have any chance. It's going to take sacrifice like it did this year from guys and the work, in addition to having the great talent. You see, because we saw talent wasn't enough the year before. Some of those guys were around. Carter, Davis, what did they say about them the first thing? They were too immature, and they didn't know how to work. Fangio comes in and says, I need you to do this. And rather than balk, they bought in. They bought in, and they worked hard. And when you do that, you can't help but succeed. But we had no idea that those guys were going to be able to grow up. We had no idea because they were being asked to do something they had never done before. Same thing on the offensive side of the ball. They get Saquon Barkley in this offensive line. Turned out to be a genius move. It worked out better than the Eagles thought. But if Jalen Hurts doesn't buy in, if Jalen Hurts doesn't believe, if Jalen Hurts goes around the facility complaining about what he's asked to do, then that means this whole thing not only would have not won the Super Bowl, they may not have won the division. Washington would have won the division. To start off, credit goes to the coaching staff, but also credit to the players for buying in and believing in the hard work.
And it's not easy to buy in, especially when you think about it. They've had new coaches all the time. And this was a little something different. You bring up the whole Fangio situation, and he basically challenged them. He said, you guys think you work hard? You don't work hard. We're going to work hard. And that I gotta say something. You have to believe. You have to believe in your veterans there. You have to believe in guys like Brandon Graham in that situation, in Slay in that situation, CJ, GJ, that they're going to buy in. Because if they buy in, it's easier for the younger players to just buy in also and think that they're going to be better and better. And, I mean, that was a group that played in preseason games. I mean, Fangio wasn't screwing around. And I like that kind of an attitude. He brought that attitude in, and the players, like you said, When you buy into something, that means you're buying in as a whole. It's not just one guy doing it, it's a whole group. He took a whole group, had them buy in, moved some players around like he did with Zach Bond, and then he found the right formula on top of it. You get two rookies that come in. They play like pro bowlers all season long with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, and they were bought in also. So once that starts to happen, we saw what happens. They get better and better as the weeks go on. By week 8, they're the number 1 defense in all of football. That's buying in. That's being there for everybody. But I think this took a lot of selflessness. And I'm going to go with the offense on this one. Because you have a new guy coming in, and Saquon Barkley, you know how good he is. Everybody knew how good he was. I'm sure Kellen Moore changed up his whole game plan when he got Saquon Barkley. Because if you thought Kellen Moore was coming in there, the one thing we were looking for was more motion, more movement pre-snap. You didn't even need that. You ended up with a back that runs for over 2,000 yards. Why? Because the offensive line was that good. Why? Because the wide receivers were somewhat selfless. And you look at it in an even bigger sense, the best player possibly on your offense for a long period of time here is Jalen Hurts. Did we hear Jalen Hurts complain? Did we hear him complain?
Not once.
So you would call him bought into the situation. And when all the players on your team buy into a situation, you know what happens? You come home with that thing they call the Lombardi.
Yes, 610-632-0975. And you're talking about lessons we can take from this. The buy-in. You get asked to do something sometimes, and that's at a radio station, a trucking company, a plumbing company. If you don't complain and you go out there and work, look at what can happen all day. I want to know, we all know the Eagles won the Super Bowl. What is your idea about how they were able to do it? Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And you know you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.